Hey guys, in this bonus tutorial, I just wanted to cover a subject that came up recently. A couple people have run into some trouble in the Redshift forums and the Facebook group dealing with the new normal mapping method. And so I briefly mentioned it actually in this month's tutorial during their leaf randomization stuff. But let me actually cover it a little more in depth because the process is a little different in Houdini. It's unique, and the other apps don't have to do this, but Houdini users do. And so, as some of you may know, the normal node is now deprecated, and so it'll likely be removed. And so, to get normal maps now, you have to use the bump map node, and there's something a little specific to it. And so, if we open up the render view right now, we will have just these two spheres here. Nothing particularly fancy. And our two planes. And so I'm going to show you guys the difference between the normal map method and the new bump map method. And so let's actually, I don't know why I don't have a light, so let me check out what's going on here. It should be here. That's why. Let's go back up. Let's go to our look dev scene. Let's open up our neutral HDR. Let's go into our materials. Let's open up our neutral HDR, look dev, Macbeth, the ground. Okay, this should look better. All right. So let's zoom in here. And so, why is our ground dark? Oh, gotta change the texture for this. All right, there we go. So anyways, so we've got these two planes, and I just did a quick UV project on them and stuff. And so we're going to do the normal map method. So if we type in normal, you'll get used to get the normal map node. And it's still available, but I think they're going to get rid of it soon. So it's good that you learn the proper way to do this. And so if we use a normal, let's reload. Oh, it's not connected. And plug that into overall bump input. And let's reload. Okay, here we go. You'll see our normal map. And let's actually make this black or something so you can see it better. And drop the roughness so we get highlights. 0.4. And let's bring in an actual light source. Just do it from this angle. Hold control, click RS light. That's a little too strong. Let's convert it. Let's do an area light. Rotate around. And yeah, cool. So that way you can really see the normal getting highlighted and stuff. So now this method works still. You guys can still use this. But the problem with this method was that there was no way to sharpen the normal texture. And so that caused people a lot of problems, basically, with the quality of the sharpness inside the normal, because this was automatically mapped. And so you weren't able to control the mapping, or you had less control versus using a texture file input node. And so let's just repeat this twice. And so the let's just copy that, come into here, paste it. And so the new method in other apps, it's easier. You just type in bump, you use the Redshift bump map, and then a file texture, an RS texture. Plug this in as the input. You look for your bump map, and you just plug it into the bump, and that's it. That's what you would do in my Cinema 4D, all those other apps. But in this app, and so the difference is Houdini doesn't provide the tangent space normals automatically for you. And so the old normal node automatically extracted this data, the UV tangents, or it created them if your object didn't have it. And now, using this new bump normal, you have to do several things to get the same result. And so, as you can see right now, even though it's plugged in, there's nothing showing up. And so there's several ways you could approach this. And so I'll show you both. And so one way, and like I said, you only have to do this in Houdini. Houdini, where I actually might put in a request to the Houdini dev to just let Houdini somehow automatically extract this data when we go into a normal mode. So right now we're in height field. If we switch over to tangent space or object space, nothing's going on. I mean, it's changing, but it's not picking up the normal data. And so the problem is that it doesn't know what the tangents are to read properly this data. And so I'm hoping that they could somehow make this automatic, just like they did with the normal node. So when you switch from height field, which is regular bump, and to one of the other two normal mode options, maybe it'll create the parameter automatically. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask about that, just because this is kind of a workaround, and I know that the old normal node used to do this automatically, so maybe they could do the same thing. And so anyways, to make that work, you have to go into your object. So for us, we're going to use this object. And there's two ways you could do this. You could either A, come in here and create something called a polyframe. And then get rid of that and create the tangent U and tangent V. And as you can see, now we're starting to get an effect. And so if I come in here and we check this, and let's actually duplicate this more than once. Let's tile it. Twice, so you can see that there's something going on, but it looks different. It still looks weird compared to this one. And so depending on where your object was made, it's either going to be tangent space or object space. So this one looks strange also, and you might be wondering, well, why? And this could be related to basically all your normal nodes. If you're going to read them in this way now, you have to make sure that you have a gamma override of 1. It has to be linearized. And now that it's linear, you'll notice that the effect is different. And there you go. So now we have the normal being influenced, but the difference is the quality. If you look at this, the quality is totally different. And also, I think I have the height scale on this is 2. So if we come over here, increase this to 2, you'll notice the height's different. But if you look at things, the sharpness of the normal, regardless of the mode it's in, like now if we have it in tangent space, which is technically correct because we're using the tangent data we just made with the polyframe. If you come in here, you look at the sharpness, the detail. This looks a little blurrier on the edges, while this one's sharper. And the reason that's the case is because the texture sampler input node lets you control the MIP mapping and how aggressive it is. And so this is why a lot of people used to have problems with the old normal node, is because it was too soft. It blurred the detail away. And so if you want to control the sharpness even further, you can decrease the MIP bias by like -2, and that'll make it even sharper. So if we let this load just in this area, and we take a snapshot, and now we do the MIP bias to 2, for example, you can see the big difference. And so what MIP bias does is it basically controls how aggressive the MIP mapping algorithm is. And so if you don't know what MIP mapping does, it's basically a way to save RAM and VRAM. And so it takes your textures and makes multiple versions of it. Some that are original size quality, half quality, a quarter quality, 1/8 of quality, and so on. And so the further you are from the camera, the render engine will use the lower quality versions of the texture. And so in the old normal node, there was no way to control this. And so you were basically always stuck with a fuzzy quality render for the normal. And so this new method lets you now control it here in the texture sampler underneath advanced. And so you could keep it at default, which is 0, or you can make it sharper and tell it to use a higher quality by going to like -2. or you can just completely disable it. But I prefer to keep it on, so if the object's really far from the camera, it'll just use a lower quality copy since it's going to be far away. And so as you can see, just looking side by side between these two, you could obviously see a quality difference in sharpness. And okay, so that's one method to do this using a polyframe SOP and disabling normal and activating tangent U and tangent V. So let's delete that. And as you can see, now it's blank again. So the other method of doing this is if you have your object selected in object level and you add a redshift OBJ parameter underneath here, in once you go into the redshift OBJ settings where you could set the object ID and stuff, you'll notice a new setting here. And so if you check right here, you'll notice it says compute vertex tangents from the object UV map. So if you check this on, what you end up getting now, let's reload, is the same thing. And so this method basically I think is a little easier, but you pretty much activate the normals for the entire object. And so if you're, again, let me just reiterate, if you're going to use the old method, which is the normal map mode, oops, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But keep in mind, I think they're going to get rid of this node pretty soon. And also the quality of it is not as good, as you can see. And so now that they changed over to the bump map with tangent options for normals, just keep that in mind, that if you're going to do this method and you're wondering why your object has nothing, the reason is because you need to either A, add the object parameters and check this on, or B, you have to create a polyframe and calculate the tangent U and V at the end of your SOP list. And so yeah, that should basically cover it. But yeah, as you can see, the new bump method with the texture sampler and the ability to control the mip mapping is superior. I mean, the quality's way better if you look at it. It's a lot sharper. You get more of the details coming in. So if let's zoom in here so you could really see the difference. I mean, if you look at this side, it's like rounded off. It's blurred because of the mip mapping, while this side much sharper in the details. And so yeah, I'll give you guys this file so you guys can see it yourself and compare. But keep in mind, like I said, I think they're going to remove the old normal map method. At least they're going to remove it probably from the list of nodes, but it'll probably still work just because they probably don't want to break reverse compatibility with older objects and assets that people have made. But I would start, if you have any assets, to start changing the normal node and change it over to the new method. It's better quality. It's better overall. And Yeah, and then it comes with all the other usual normal map settings that we're all used to. So you could check unbiased normals, flip Y depending on the app it was created in, your normals, and yeah, that about covers it. And just remember, whenever you use normal maps or roughness maps or any of that stuff, you have to gamma override to 1. You have to linearize, so keep that in mind. The only one you shouldn't be doing this to is basically like diffuse maps, and that's it. And mapping -2 if you want sharper textures. And yeah, that about covers it. And so this was just a quick little bonus tutorial regarding the new normal mapping method, because in all the other applications you don't have to do this extra step. They just use the bump map, plug it in, and it works. But for Houdini specifically, we have to do we have to create the tangent normal directions. And so, like I said, I'm gonna put in a request to hopefully have this automated so we don't have to do this too. But who knows? Maybe it's a Houdini specific thing and we have to do this. And so, cool. Hopefully this answers some of your questions and that some people have been having regarding the new normal mapping method, because at first this confused me too when I came out and tried to do it. I was like, why aren't my normals working? And so it turned out that I had to go create the tangents myself. And so hopefully that answers some of your guys' questions regarding the new normal mapping methodology that Redshift has. And as you can see, the quality difference it's obvious. So I understand why they want us to do this now. But yeah, thanks again, guys, for supporting my Patreon. Hopefully you guys make some cool stuff with the leaf shading randomization tutorial. And I'll be covering, I think, next month, or for the next tutorial, a lot of people have been asking me about skin shading and hair shading. And so how to use melanin parameters, how to create them in the Redshift hair system, and how to use Houdini hair and fur inside of Redshift. And so I think I'll just have a basic groom on Digital Emily, and since that's open source, I could give you guys the files and stuff, and you guys can mess around with it. But yeah, I'll likely put up previews once I get around to doing that in a couple weeks. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Have a good one.